Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Carruth Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 1999 psychological thriller titled The Bone Collector. Now, The Bone Collector runs for 1 hour and 58 minutes long. It is directed by Philip Noyce. It is produced by Michael and Martin Bregman and Louis Stroller. The script was written by Jeremy Iacone. It was based on a novel called The Bone Collector by Jeffrey Deaver. The score was done by Craig Armstrong, the cinematography Dean Semler, and the editing was done by William Hoy. And the star of the movie are Denzel Washington, Angelina Jolie, Queen Latifah, Michael Rooker, Louise Guzman, Leland Orser, and Ed O'Neill. Yes, that's right, the Ed O'Neill who played Al Bundy in Married with Children, and Jay Pritchett from the TV series Modern Family. It just never seems to amaze me, but even through the most contrived films out there, Denzel Washington could still pull off an amazing thriller. His body language in his comfort zone, which is why he more often gets cast as either an athlete or a military personnel. He truly has the gift of the gab, and The Bone Collector clearly exemplifies that. It's just too bad that in this movie, Washington is for the most quadriplegic, which means that, he's like 98% of the movie, he is bedridden. In The Bone Collector, Washington is a forensic specialist named Lincoln Rhyme who works for the NYPD, or at least used to work for the NYPD. That is until, as you could see from the opening scene, at the lower depths of the subway station, he's hit by a beam, which was the cause for his immobility. So as a result, the only joints that are still intact are a finger, which he uses, to like a surveillance type of computerized contraption, his shoulders, and his brain. Now, even in this movie, Washington, or Lincoln Rhyme, I should say, is, yes, he spends most of his movie in bed, and he's also confined to a whole bunch of machines. And he's also and throughout this movie, he also has contemplation of doctors' assisted suicide, because he fears that if he suffers a major seizure, this could put him into a perpetual vegetative state, which of course he does not want happen. He doesn't want to take the risks. Residing with him is his nurse, named Thelma, played by Queen Latifah. And every so often, a doctor or a medical professional, played by Leland Orser, comes in. I think his name was Richard Thompson. Yeah. Every so often he comes in to check on him to see if he is cleared and officially ready to commit the act of euthanasia, which is what he wants, because he just doesn't want to become a vegetable. So that's the reason why he wants doctors' assisted suicide. In order for this film to work, it definitely requires someone extraordinary to be an equal match to Mr. Washington's talents. In one of her early starring roles, Angelina Jolie steps up to the plate as a rookie detective by the name of Amelia Donaghy, who's been assigned to fill in his running field work for him. And even though she's drenched in sex appeal, backed by an upbeat soundtrack and a tantalizing view of the Manhattan skyline, the exterior scenes were actually filmed in New York City. However, the interior scenes, like Lincoln's apartment and some of the other inner stuff, is actually filmed in Montreal. The Bone Collector could still be a potential dust collector, but because of Washington's great performance and Angelina Jolie's great performance, and even the supporting cast seemed to turn in some pretty convincing performances too. But if it wasn't for these guys, if it wasn't for the cast, this movie would have been just, a formulaic noir movie that's just envious of the 50s type noir movies that came around, that materialized in that era. The plot is involving a methodical, macabre, sadistic killer with clues scattered around. It may be unoriginal in terms of a storyline, and it reminds us all of the 1995 film Seven, but at least in the aforementioned story, it is executed quite subliminally. Some of Rhimes' concussions are illogical. Did I say concussions? I meant conclusions. They are considered illogical and implausible at times, spending most of the film planted flat on his back. Mr. Rhyme is able to unravel esoteric clues with pieces of bones and skin particles situated overhead. In some ways, he kind of reminds me of a quadriplegic version of Velma of Scooby-Doo fame. He can easily trace these small clue fragments towards the murderer, who's posing as a New York City cab driver, committing sadistic acts from over 100 years ago. That's because this sadistic killer seems to be somewhat obsessed with a library book over 100 years ago that was called The Bone Collector. And because of the fascination of the story, he's trying to duplicate every aforementioned event that was in the book. I mean, it looks like an old school novel filled with dialogue and almost like graphic novel pictures. Hey, this old thing looks like it's ahead of its time. And whoever said that graphic novels are a relatively new thing? They are actually quite old, if you ask me. Rhyme is able to track down the killer's next whereabouts, located to what happens to be an old slaughterhouse. Rhyme is able to know exactly which one it is. How does he know? He's practically tied to a bed. But somehow, Rhyme seems to be the answers to everything. Based on the best-selling novel by Jeffrey Deaver and the script by Jeremy Iacone, The Bone Collector had the potential to be a very intriguing mystery thriller in the same vein like Sherlock Holmes. But the only problems that makes this film too unbelievable was that Rhyme was never once wrong in all of his fragmented evidence. And to top it all off, it wasn't just coincidental that Queen Latifah, who plays Nurse Thelma, who seems to be very savvy at putting pieces together, almost as if it was like a hobby to her. Another reason that this film is not exactly mind-numbing brain work can be found inside the cab itself. If you look closely at the rear view mirror, you will see a doll, like one of those car ornaments, those little car hood ornaments, that you put there. There's a doll there with a noose tied around its neck. I mean, who would want to step into a New York cab seeing something like that? To all cabbies watching this movie, I'd advise you to avoid this one, unless you want your clients to feel that you might drive them to a slaughterhouse. You don't want that to happen, do you? You guys all want to save your reputations. So if you're a cab driver and you cringe at this kind of movie, I advise you to stay away. And even though the film's genre is billed as a psychological thriller, it could actually, believe it or not, work better as a romantic drama. I mean, sure, it may not look that way, but through watchful eyes, I could see the connection. We could see through the character of Angelina Jolie, Amelia Donaghy. From her evidence she unraveled from the killer's first victim, Rhyme narrowly believes that Donaghy has the talent for forensic science, and yet she's just a rookie. She's inexperienced, especially coming in this kind of field of work. I mean, surely there are a lot of other veteran police force out there, or forensics experts out there who could track down and ascertain whoever it is who's committing these horrible crimes. But to me, it feels as if Rhyme likes her company. And maybe more than just her company sometimes. Sometimes, I don't know, it's just the vibes I get when I see them on screen together. Or when they're trying to track down who this mysterious killer is. He also believes that she is the only one who is capable of digging up evidence to clue searching. I'm sure the NYPD can find more experienced people than her. And like I said, I think he's only hiring her because he just loves her company. Director Philip Noyce's close-up of Rhyme looking over his inexperienced cohort. I mean, okay, sure, she's nice on the eyes. And the way they look at each other, it shows that they do have feelings for one another. Especially during the last scenes when she takes him over to some kind of Christmas party. And he is reacquainted by his sister and his niece. You could see that they look like a happy couple. That's just sort of how I feel, If you have different opinions on that, feel free. Leave a comment. Don't be shy. Don't be rude, but don't be shy if you disagree. The performances are actually what makes the story at least not a complete letdown. Second generation performer Jolie, she definitely bears a striking resemblance to her father, Jon Voight, especially in the classic film Midnight Cowboy. Knowing her dominance and charisma, she can really outperform her cohorts, whether she's playing a lead or a supporting role. Washington lets his eyes metaphorically do the talking. His intelligence is what carries the movie quite well. Next to Morgan Freeman, Washington is able to embody an infallible detective, none the better. He is true. This is what makes this movie well. It's not really the storyline. The storyline is kind of narrow. The clues in this movie are too obvious. There's a lot of stuff that kind of lacks in logic. But it is a character-driven film, and the characters really do perform quite convincingly, especially that of Denzel Washington and Angelina Jolie. And for that, if I was to give this movie a scale out of 10, I'm sorry, but I would probably have to give this movie a 6. So I guess this ends my writer review. Thank you all for listening in. If you'd like to leave a comment, please feel free to do so. If you want to subscribe to my channel, go right ahead. Remember, be kind, be courteous, and don't be rude. And I will be back again with another review. So until next time, this is Eric Correct Writer saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.